I don't want to steal the thunder. I don't want to steal the thunder. If you like the person that you met, listen. It's Folsom weekend. Get their information. There are a lot of places you can take them this weekend to get to know them a little bit better. If you need some ideas, just find me afterwards. I'll tell you where I'm going.
Don't go there.
Yeah, go there. I'll tell you afterwards. Because I'm not gonna come up afterwards. I just want to quickly plug. We have a bunch of amazing events coming up. You can go to welcometomannys.com. Please take photographs, and if you do, I'm sure there'll be some tagging on their end. Please also tag it Welcome to Manny's. And finally, I just want to say thank you so much. We survived this goddamn pandemic. We're here, we're back, and better than ever. And so thank you for making our dreams come true and for becoming part of this community again. It's been quite a slog, and it's really beautiful to see you all here tonight. So without further ado, I'm going to give the mic back here, and I'm going to go sit down and listen to this amazing conversation. One more round of applause for Kara Swisher.
All right, hi everyone. Can you hear me okay? Is this on?
Yeah.
All right, hi. I'm Eric Johnson. Welcome to Follow Friday. It's a podcast about who you should follow online. If you haven't listened to it before, the way it works is every week I talk to a creative person about who they follow online. So podcasters, writers, comedians. Some people may call you all three, I don't know. And today we are live in San Francisco at Manny's. Please clap. Here in person and not listening to the podcast later, I will have some stuff up on the video screen, but you don't have to see it. So if you're over there and you can't see it, no big deal. It's just additional pictures and text and stuff. Thank you everyone for being here. Thank you for being vaccinated, as Manny said. It's so great to see so many people out supporting Manny's and here supporting the podcast. So this is a little reunion for us. I spent many, many hours sitting right over there where the piano is now, producing Kara Swisher's podcast, Recode Decode, back in the day. We made more than 500 episodes of that. And yeah, so tonight is my chance to turn the tables, ask her a few questions. So everyone, please, one more time, welcome Kara Swisher. So true story, I asked you to be on the show a couple weeks ago, and your response was, okay, who are we interviewing? And I guess then I told you that you were going to be the guest, you were going to be interviewed, and you said, okay, I am famouser now. So for the record, I think you were already famous when we worked together, but you are more famouser. So,
yes.
You host Sway for the New York Times, you still host Pivot for New York Magazine, you're a contributing writer at the Times. If I'm not making it up, I think you're writing a book about Silicon Valley, is that right? So what's it like being famous, sir? Enlighten us. You get weird people stopping you in the street?
I apologize for my voice. I've been doing a lot of podcasts lately. Can you all hear me okay?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
great. I did like 17 podcasts last week, and so I lost my voice. And I also have a toddler who just went to preschool. And I don't know if you remember when we used to have colds and flus, but they still exist. And so she went to school and immediately became a petri dish of all the other kids. And I have your garden variety cold that you get from a 2-year-old, essentially, which I'm going to have for the rest of my life until I get. We're expecting another baby in December. Beautiful older sons. One is right here with my Louis, who worked here at Manny's. Louis said I almost got out, but then I didn't. So I apologize.
You sound fine. I think everyone's can hear you okay. Yeah.
I'm also going to wear this. I don't want it. I'm not infectious or anything, but I don't want to pull a London breed.
What is it like being famous now?
At least I didn't pull a Gavin Newsom.
This is not a French Laundry. I'm sorry to inform you.
No, it is not.
$2
Yeah. Where is the buttered lobster?
So, I mean, like, do you find that your life is different now that you have, you're now the New York Times, doing the podcast there?
No, I think we did a lot of amazing podcasts at Recode Decode.
Yeah. And
it was really groundbreaking. Nobody was doing podcasts, and nobody was doing interview podcasts for sure. And Mark Maron was obviously, but we've done a lot, especially in tech, and made some real news. I was just rereading the one we did with Mark Zuckerberg. He talked to me several years ago. When he made me.
Since then, I'm guessing radio silence.
Yes, he's not my best friend. Every time he does an interview with me, it's a disaster for him, not for me. It's a career booster for me. He made the unfortunate comparison, comment that Holocaust deniers don't need to lie, which of course is the definition of a Holocaust denier. And Eric was with me in that interview. And we never wanted to get out of somewhere fast, so we can post it. And when he said it, Eric looked up. He didn't notice that he had said something that was problematic for a person who runs the most important communications meeting in history of the world. And we literally ran out of there and posted it onto the internet.
That was one for the ages.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of tech executives, next week you're going down to LA for the Code Conference. Your big annual conference, talking to grilling all of the leaders in tech and politics and more. Who are you most looking forward to interviewing this year?
Well, you got to say Elon Musk.
Yeah.
I'm going to comfort him. Apparently, he just broke up with Grimes.
He's such a, it's kind of sad that he's such a shitposter on Twitter, because
I
found out about the breakup through like shitposting memes on Twitter.
Oh, really? I think he's really interesting. I know people have issues with him. He was just, I did an interview with him in the middle of COVID, and we had a terrible argument. COVID, and he tried to stalk off the Zoom, which I'm like, it's not very dramatic.
Already left the Zoom, you can't slam the door.
Right, and then he didn't, you know. But I'm excited because I'm interested in the space stuff. I want to talk to him about climate change. You can have any opinion you want about Elon Musk, and many people do, but the stuff he's been doing around cars and space is super interesting to me. When we face all these climate changes, even if he says stupid things about Dogecoin, which I'm focused on. And obviously I didn't agree with about COVID, but he wrote me an email. Was I vaccinated? I'm like, do you want a medal? I said, good job. Good for you.
Well, like I said, this is the podcast about who you should follow online. So let's find out who Kara Swisher follows. And everyone, that says up there on the screen, you can tweet questions for Kara to me. I'll be checking them a little bit throughout the show. So tweet them to @HeyHeyESJ with the hashtag #FollowFridayLive. So Kara, before the show, I gave you a list of categories, and I asked you to tell me some people you follow who fit in those categories.
Okay.
Your first break is in the category someone who makes you think. And you said Scott Galloway, who is your co-host on Pivot.
I can't believe I said that.
He teaches marketing at NYU, and he's written 3 books, most recently called Post-Corona, and he's on Twitter @Prof Galloway.
Yeah.
So tell a story of how you and Scott first met. I think it was at a conference in Europe.
You know, it's really interesting. This week, we talked about having my new child coming, and he immediately tried to claim paternity, which was totally offensive. And he made a series of horrible jokes about lesbians.
Sounds
so
right.
I can't believe I picked him. But here's why I like dealing with him, and then I'll tell you how we met. It's very hard today to disagree with people who you don't agree with, right? It's very hard to have disagreements. I think what's very powerful about that show is, I mean, it's sort of a bit of a, you know, he's sort of this slightly unwoke man who says stupid things, and I'm a San Francisco lesbian and hits him on the head with a stick. And it's very enjoyable for people to watch that. And, it's not a formula precisely because we have such chemistry. One of the things that's great, we had a big disagreement this week on something, and we can do it in a civil way where we don't come to agreement necessarily, but we hear each other. And so often I'm like, oh, I didn't think of it that way, damn. He has a point. And I think people are dying for that in this incredibly partisan time. I mean, it's very hard to reach out to people you disagree with. And you seem to leave a lot of people behind. I think that plays into all the malevolent people who are trying to take us apart. And so I think one of the things that's great about the show is it shows a lot of commonality. And we have a point of view. And I think we are funny and stuff like that. And we met because, speaking of Elon Musk, he gave a presentation, Scott, at DLD in Germany, and he made me laugh. And he made, I don't mean to say this lightly, but people are not that interesting. Like they don't say things that surprise me a lot. I'm always like, oh, yeah, of course they said that. And he said at least 6 things that I was like, I hadn't thought about that. It was unusual because everybody. And so I introduced myself to him, and then I oddly enough invited him on the podcast. And we had a discussion. It was very funny from the start. And he predicted the Amazon buying Whole Foods on the show, which was a big deal. It was a really great prediction.
This was months before it happened. He had just an out of the prediction.
Yeah, completely. He's like this obnoxious oracle that you just hit on the head and something really smart comes out. And I hit him on the head and something smart came out. And I was looking at the numbers for the show, and they were close to Elon Musk levels. And I was like, that's interesting. Who knows who this guy is? Because he wasn't as well known as he is now. And so I found that intriguing, and I liked it. I liked the show. And so I had him on again, and it happened again. The numbers were fascinating. And what was really interesting, the last part, is when I started to go out, people would call at me across the street, how's that asshole Scott? I liked when you did this. People felt, the fans got very interested in us as a couple like us. Although let's keep that loose.
I'm sure Scott would say something different.
Yeah, no, he's funny. We talk a lot actually. And it was a really good partnership, just like with mine with Walt Mossberg. It was so different than Scott. I can't even believe it. Walt is, I wanted to have Howard Stern and Code, and he wouldn't let me. He's like, he's offensive to women and lesbian gay people. I'm like, so what? And Walt was, he was sort of the ultimate liberal who really cared about people and their feelings. It was interesting. And Scott, of course, would have Howard Stern on any time and appear naked.
I think he did like an ad for a TV show.
Yes, that was unfortunate.
Shirtless.
He is not doing that TV show.
Because of the ad.
Yes, apparently he made some people feel unsafe. I just think he's an idiot. So it's interesting. So anyway, after that, I said we should do a show, and it's worked out really well. We're doing we're going to Miami to do an event called PivotCon.
That's great.
Yeah, well, not today. Wait until we'll see what happens there. I think it's not till next year, so I think the dulcet effects of Ron DeSantis might be so. We went to his house in Miami. We had a great time. He's a very different person off stage. It's kind of he plays a character.
I was going to ask, yes, your relationship on Pivot, you are, as you said, very civil, very respectful, but you're also combative at times.
Yeah.
Like, do you ever? Are you ever playing that up, or is it really just an honest representation of how differently you feel?
It is. I think, yeah, we do. We really do, and it's really people like it. It's fascinating how podcast listeners become involved in your lives, and they like your dynamic. That's why it is really about the podcasters and how we interact in a lot of ways, because there's a lot of podcasts like this. It's growing like crazy during the pandemic.
Right.
And a lot of podcasts didn't. It's tripled in size. And it just happens all the time. Fans really like it. Either they root for him or they root for me or whatever. But he lives a fancier life than I do. He was getting on a helicopter with a blade to go out to the Hamptons. And the guy who was doing this goes, "Where's Kara?" What?
Well, okay, so on the topic of stuff where you disagree.
Yeah.
What is something with Scott Galloway where you absolutely agree with him 100%, and something where you absolutely disagree, could not see eye to eye with him?
I think he's obsessed with cancel culture because he's scared he's going to be canceled. I consider it consequence culture. I think if you do a shitty thing, you should pay for it. I'm sorry. I think a lot of people are taking this stance that they can't say things. It's all bullshit. It's so funny. I was trying to get Josh Hawley to come on Sway, and he's a very smart guy. Let me just say, he's not. It's easy to dismiss him because he's somewhat of a fascist. But he was bygones, right? No bygones. But he was, he's always like, I've been censored. I've been this. I've been that. Same thing with that idiot Marty Gerald Green. she never shuts the fuck up, right? So you're like, you have all these ways to communicate, including being a congressperson. And you act as if this is a crisis. It's not a crisis for your communication. You just, this week we had that disagreement. We said, well, people can't say what they want. I said, maybe people shouldn't say some things. You know what I mean? It's about decency. And maybe people have had enough of listening to all the crap that comes out of your mouth,
Did you see that headline that the Guardian had? It was something like Johnny Depp warns about dangers of cancel culture while accepting lifetime achievement award.
Whatever. They never shut up. And they have no evidence. There's no evidence. I'm tough on tech companies, but this is not something they're doing.
Right.
They're doing not enough of it, I guess, as some people think. So I think he's wrong with that. He's like, students at universities, I don't know. It's not like our world's biggest problem, honestly. You look around with homelessness, we've got poverty, we've got healthcare issues. And this is all these incredibly wealthy, privileged people can talk about. They don't get to say whatever they want.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get it.
And then what about something where you agree? Like, is there something that Scott Galloway has said in conversation with you that changed your mind, that really made you go like, oh, he's exactly right, and I never considered it that way?
A lot of things, actually. At first, I wasn't, why does he change my mind? We talk about so many different things.
Yeah.
He's a little, if you can believe it, tougher on Facebook than I am. I think these people are sort of sloppily malignant or malignantly sloppy. I can't decide. And sometimes they don't mean, they just don't, they're so sloppy as people, and all they're interested in is growth. He thinks they're criminal. I don't think so. He tends to blame Sheryl Sandberg more than I do. I think the buck stops Mark Zuckerberg. I understand she's an enabler of this. I understand she went along, but he is unqualified. He cannot be fired. He's in complete control of the company. She's an employee, and no matter what, the buck stops with him.
Yeah, I mean,
he does. He seems to go after. I think it's a little. I see why, and I agree on some of the culpability, but on some level, why, he didn't know. I was like, give me a break. He's not 12. He has 3 children or 2 children. He's named after various Roman emperors. And he should take responsibility.
All right, well, that was Scott Galloway, who's on Twitter @Prof Galloway.
Yeah, be careful now.
Kara, let's move on to your next follow. I asked you for someone you have a non-romantic crush on, and you said the English actor and producer Gemma Chan, who is on Twitter @Gemma_Chan.
Yeah.
He's also on Instagram @GemmaChan, no underscore.
What did you say, a what?
Non-romantic crush.
Oh, sure.
This is one of my favorite categories on the show.
Smart.
Yeah.
Throw that in.
Yeah, so okay, it's my favorite categories because some people have very different reasons for saying they have a crush or non-romantic crush on someone. So explain why her.
About, I saw her in several different things, and she was in Crazy Rich Asians. There's something she has with the screen that's very compelling to me, at least. I find her both sad and wise, and I don't know, there's something about her that I really like. I'm excited to see her in what it seems like a relatively lead role in The Eternals. I obviously love Avengers movies, hello. I find her, she's the kind of actress that should be more valued by Hollywood, I guess. And there's something about her, it isn't, of course. But I find her compelling. I can't explain it.
Yeah, well, I was looking at her Twitter, and it's really interesting because there's a lot of the standard promotional stuff. Here's a photo shoot from a magazine, here's something about Eternals, here's something about some other movie, whatever. But then mixed in stuff, there's tweets and retweets that I assume she's doing herself, where it's talking about anti-Asian hate crimes, talking about racism against the English football team, against the Black players on the team, where she's using her platform to raise awareness about really serious stuff.
I really like, I was thinking about The Eternals, I want to interview it. The obvious people are Chloe Zhao, who directed it, who I think is really talented, who did Nomadland and won the Oscar this year, and also Kevin Feige,
Feige, I think.
Whatever. Yeah. But I keep coming back to her, or Angelina Jolie would be interesting for sure. But I keep coming back to her, someone I really like to talk to about acting. I don't know why. She's also beautiful.
So you've never met her, you never had a chance to interview her.
No.
But if you did have a chance, like, what would be your first question for her? What would you want to ask her most urgently?
I have to see the journals. I talk about this, her compelling nature, I think, without speaking her out like a stalker. I talk about her role, how she looks at her power in Hollywood, sways about power, how she thinks about it. I just have a feeling, I don't know. I just have a feeling she's just very compelling, and it happens not very often.
Yeah.
When I see an actor, it's like, I don't know. First question. I have to see the journals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so I mentioned that she uses her platform, her Twitter, to raise awareness about some
Yeah.
serious issues. You have almost 10 times the number of followers that she does.
1.4 million.
Yeah, you could look. You kind of.
No, I was looking today.
Yeah. So I was your bio. Yeah.
I got on Twitter early,
Yeah.
so a lot of them are bots. Let's be honest.
Well, so you have this gigantic platform yourself. How do you? I mentioned that she's kind of balancing her promotional stuff with these more serious political issues. How do you weigh your responsibility, your priorities, and deciding what to talk about? Because like you can have a day where like there's no good news, and I imagine there's some temptation to just pile on, to just like
Sure.
revel in just like how shitty everything feels. But there's also maybe some some case for like distraction or for entertainment.
I try to do a lot of things. I try to call attention to cool stuff I see,
Yeah.
smart things. Twitter, for all its toxicity and swampiness, can be very beautiful and funny. Very funny stuff on there, very creative, just like TikTok. So you're like, wow, people are really funny and creative. And I tend to try to focus on that part. I certainly use it as a bully pulpit to smack around people. When Adam Asseri from Facebook was using the idea, like, cars are bad for humanity, but in the whole, they're good. So, it was crazy. What an idiotic metaphor. I was like, put down Twitter right now. Kevin Roos, who was a wonderful Twitter person who works for the New York Times, said it's like the head of Chipotle saying, the salmonella in the guac that killed people, sure, that was a problem. But in the end, industrialized food production means we don't have to be hunter-gatherers anymore. I push back on that.
Right.
But not as good as Kevin. I tend to focus, try to use it judiciously. I'm not, even though I use Twitter a lot, I think I'm a professional Twitterer compared to most people. There's a lot of, I'm very careful, much more. I made one mistake once, which I regret. But a lot of reporters are a little too much on it, I think. And I often text friends of mine, I'm like, put down Twitter, right? You can't say that,
People are addicted. Yeah.
They're addicted, and especially during the Trump era. When I just recently interviewed Jason Miller, I get that people don't like it. Hello, I don't like it. But I think it's important. He was starting this new thing called Getter, which you can't believe the name of that.
This thing, free speech platform. Yeah.
And it was a very tough interview. The only worst name for Getter, which is sounds like grabber, kind of thing, as in, I did a column and I said, the only worst name would be Mindspace. Or Titter, it's Trump related social network. And I wanted to interview him because this is where Trump might emerge. And I've written a lot about this topic of him getting kicked off. I had warned Twitter quite a bit about what he was doing. And so I wanted to talk to him about it. People lost their fucking minds about it. And I was like, are you kidding me? You hear these people. It was an extraordinarily tough interview. And they liked it when I did it for Parler because the guy got fired and they got shut down.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't like it when I did it for Miller because they assumed I'm not doing my job, which is to ask tough questions of people. So that was, that was an interesting moment on Twitter. I was sort of, I responded, I'm like, suck it, I'll interview whoever I want.
All right, here's a really tough hardball
I think
question
I
for you.
tweeted that.
Here's a tough hardball question for you.
Sure.
But before Gemma Chan and Chloe Zhao come in and make the best Marvel movie, what is the best Marvel movie?
Oh wow. I think probably Iron Man, the first one, and Black Panther, I guess.
Good point. Good picks.
Although I liked Shang-Chi, it's the first movie I've gone to recently in theater in 2 years. I now decided whether movies are COVID worthy. You know, remember on SpongeBob on Seinfeld?
You watched F9 at home. Remember you were at
I
home
did.
about
I watched.
this,
I
yeah.
love Fast and Furious, but I watched it at home, and I couldn't go to the theater. I just wasn't COVID worthy, and so I'm going to go to Bond. I'll be honest with you. I'm heading to Bond. I'm going. I'll go to Top Gun too. I know. Don't hate me.
Keep on pushing that one back. It's driving me nuts.
I think I'm gonna go.
You're gonna go.
I just love Maverick. I don't know why.
Well, that was Gemma Chan, who's on Twitter at Gemma_Chan and on Instagram at Gemma Chan. This is normally the point of the show where I take an ad break. I'm not going to subject you all to that, but I will just say I'm just going to do a little transition if everyone just applauds when I go like this. We're going to take a quick break now. We'll be back in a minute with Kara Swisher. Not with my ear that high stakes podcasting.
It could have been a disaster.
We got that recording going. We're all right. All right. Welcome back to Follow Friday. Kara, your next follow is someone you've followed forever. And you said Jack Dorsey, who is at Jack on Twitter. Great Twitter username.
Yeah.
Extremely cringeworthy Twitter bio, which is #Bitcoin. That's it.
What is going on with that guy?
So that's my question for you. I assume you follow Jack Dorsey because you love cryptocurrency so much.
No. He lost me at that beer, I gotta say. One time he showed up to an interview. I feel like everyone should do what they want, but still, you don't try not to judge people, but I totally judged him. I said so. I showed up at a meeting with him and he had it, the Lincoln beer or whatever. And I was like, what the hell? What are you doing? Making chocolate in Brooklyn? He lost that thing. I'm not sure what's going on. I follow him because I think he's an interesting follow. I followed him from the beginning. You know, people don't realize this, but Twitter was not Twitter. It was called Idea. What was it?
Odeo?
Odeo.
It's a podcasting
It was
company.
a podcasting company, and it didn't work. And they had this separate Twitter thing that they used. And so I was there at the very beginning when they were Odeo, and then they switched over, and Ev and Biz and Jack was there, and then he wasn't there, and then they weren't there. It was I used to call Twitter a lesbian collective. Only a lesbian can say that because it was like they were all mad at each other and arguing.
Yeah, we should say, I mean, the San Francisco crowd knows this, yeah. So Jack Dorsey runs Twitter and
Yeah.
also Square still, right? He runs
He
both
does.
companies. Yeah.
He does. He's a very interesting entrepreneur. I've interviewed him a bunch of times. He's actually a very good interview. And I just like to follow him. I think he's this kind of down Bitcoin avenue is strange. I see why. I understand Bitcoin is not just Bitcoin. Cryptocurrency is a really important area, a disruptive area. And if you notice today, China just totally cut it off.
What they do, they just completely like.
They made it illegal.
Wow.
So essentially, a month ago, they cracked down on mining. They're trying to be carbon zero or whatever. But China's doing what Amy Klobuchar and Josh Hawley wish they could do, right? They're just like shutting down this power of all the tech companies there. Jack Ma's disappeared. The Reddit, the driving one, what's it called there? Jean Liu from the Drive.
Oh, Didi.
Yeah. Quieted. They're all been quieted, every one of them. Government has just decided that tech people have too much power. And rather than a democratic process that we have, which means nothing happens, they're just really seriously, they're just clamping down like you can't believe. If I were running an authoritarian country, that's probably what I would do. But we don't have that here. So.
If I were running one, I wouldn't ban cryptocurrency, but I would ban crypto bros. Just anyone who
Yeah.
tweets about cryptocurrency,
That's
straight to jail.
change. You know, Gary Gensler's coming to code next week. He's the SEC chairman. He just gave a speech comparing it to the Wild West of finance. Apparently, I didn't know this. Banks all used to have their own currency back in the day, which I was not aware of. I didn't learn that in my history class. And I think it reminds me of the early internet. You know, I was around for that. And there was a lot of con men and crazy people and obnoxious people. And then it consolidated. First Yahoo, Google didn't come along for a while, by the way. No, not 2000 essentially. And so it was when I got here in 1996. It was nuts. It was crazy, and there were a lot of really sketchy So I think cryptocurrency is very important, but it's not going to escape regulatory scrutiny because the only thing government has that is really powerful is control of money, currency, and regulation of finance. And I'll tell you, they're not giving that one. They're not giving that.
What you mentioned earlier, your colleague at the New York Times, Kevin Roos, who's also a former guest on this podcast, and I want to share something to be up on the screen, something he tweeted, which I'll also read for folks who can't see. He says, "I'm sure there are days when Jack Dorsey wishes Twitter was just as big as Facebook, but it must be fun to be able to just tweet weird crypto stuff instead of having a 55-person team vet your wakeboarding selfies for possible antitrust violations."
He's trying to do Elon Musk. He's just not doing it as well. They're friends, actually.
Jack and Elon.
Yes, they are. I asked Jack once who he really admires, and it was just Elon. That was a surprise. It was an interesting answer. Mark Zuckerberg was Bill Gates and Augustus Caesar. Yeah, exactly.
Well,
Like, whoa.
So yeah, comparing Jack to folks like Zuck or Elon or whoever, I mean, Twitter has problems, but I know you are an avid Twitter user. You're on it every day. So how do you feel about, how Jack's doing, how the company's doing? Do you feel good about the fact that you are actively participating in this?
I've done a lot of Twitter spaces. I'm not on Clubhouse. I don't like investors. And they kept attacking tech reporters. Like, what is the problem? Yeah. They're the richest people in the world, and they have to complain about Taylor Lawrence. Like, stop it. So I just don't want to help them. I don't want to paint their fence.
They're really hung up on her.
It's just like, stop it. Okay, sometimes she says something that you don't like. Move along, boys. And it's all boys, by the way. And one of the reason I like Twitter Spaces is because it's a feature. We got 2,000 people last night talking about Facebook files, and the people are civil and really interesting. I like a lot of stuff at Twitter. I do think they and other social media companies move too slowly, as you know, around Donald Trump. I had written this column in early 2019 where I literally said, what if Trump loses the election and he starts tweeting the election was a fraud and a lie, and it was a fraud and it was stolen? What if he keeps doing it and then he encourages his supporters when it's about to be, made official, to attack the government? I really wrote that, and I put it to people at Twitter, and they're like, well, that's never going to happen. And I was like, yes, it is. It could. And so it was really interesting for them to let it get that way in the first thing. Now, I'm not blaming social media for, it's clearly a Trump store what happened, and the people who choose to be tourists at the Capitol. But social media allowed him to behave like that. And one of the ironic things is a lot of the behavior Trump did, which I think was appalling, is showing how few rules they had in place, right? Trump is unveiling the fact that they don't manage this shit very well at all. And I think that's
testing the fence and showing how much.
Well, he did. He's such a malevolent actor that he proved that they didn't. It was haphazard, and of course the Facebook oversight board, wouldn't make a decision on him because they were shocked that Facebook didn't have policies. And then this week's stories that Facebook does make exceptions, even though they said they didn't really. It's just one big, sloppy, bordering on malfeasance.
So it's a relatively, you feel better about Twitter and about Jack?
I think they're smaller. That's all. I think they were very late. He did do the right thing around political advertising early. It took them all a while to kick off Alex Jones. I had a meeting with Zuckerberg. We were there. We argued about Alex Jones. And I'm like, you're going to kick him off in 3 weeks. I wish we would stop arguing about this because you're going to do it. Because he's breaking your rules over again. He's making fun of you. At this point, I don't blame Alex Jones. Why wouldn't Trump? You can say they're bad people, but why wouldn't you continue to break the rules when nobody's stopping you? And so, and it's to your benefit. But I thought they were very slow to that. They've gotten better with products. I think they're a little bit slow. I like it. I enjoy it. Yeah. I'm not on Facebook or Instagram. I've been on it.
Right.
And I use it when I need to for work, but I don't feel like painting their fence either.
I remember there was an episode of Recode Decode that I think you co-hosted with Vic Costello, who was Jack's successor and predecessor,
Something like that.
But you were asking him about who's funny in Silicon Valley, and I'm pretty sure he said Jack Dorsey is funny. I think you were skeptical then too. Yeah.
He's not funny.
But yeah, I was gonna ask if you had any funny stories or any good stories from just having known Jack since the ODO days.
He's an odd duck. I think he's awkward, much more awkward than before. He's very thoughtful. I'll tell you that. That's one thing I really enjoy about him. He has a hard time sometimes articulating things, but he always answers. I appreciate that about him. He shouldn't be running both companies. He knows, I think that it's kind of ridiculous.
He was about to move to Africa, like early 2020. Yeah. He was like getting ready to move to Africa.
I think he was there.
Yeah.
I think he was there.
He
was somewhere not where he should have been when they were throwing Trump off.
The investors were already pissed at him for running two companies, and he's just
like, stock's doing okay.
Yeah.
Doing okay.
Yeah.
I would worry more if it was bigger.
Yeah. Well, that was Jack Dorsey, who's on Twitter @Jack. Kara, your next follow is someone you have a love-hate relationship with.
So many people.
You said Michael Wolf, who's on Twitter @MichaelWolfNYC. And Wolf is spelled with 2 F's for the audience listeners.
Yeah.
Michael is a journalist and newspaper columnist, as well as the author of 3 books about the Trump presidency, including Fire and Fury, which I think became a bestseller after Trump threatened to sue him from the White House.
And then let him back in.
Yeah. So let's start with
the narcissist you have to be to let someone who calls you a lunatic back into the building.
Well, let's start with the positive stuff. What do you love about Michael Wolf?
I think he's a beautiful writer. I think he's a really interesting writer. I think he has really interesting insights. Boy, don't I agree with him on most things. I met him in the early days of the internet when he wrote a book, I'm blanking on the name of it. But he and I were.
Was this his book about the .com company? It was like burn rate.
Burn rate. And I thought it was, there was a lot of stuff I thought was problematic. He mushed people up. He sort of took a lot of liberties, and I would say. At the time, I was much more stringent. Now I'm like, oh, whatever, just as long as I know it. But I don't do it, but he did. And so but I liked it. He had the right sense of what was happening. He just sort of made the stories a little more interesting than they were at the time. But he had the right sense of what was happening. He had the right tone. Like, I thought he was just like, in a lot of ways, like Scotty. He was insightful about what was happening. And he said a lot of things most reporters wouldn't say. So I like that about him. Beautiful, beautiful writer. Makes a lot of connections. I used to say I used to tell him he had an evil talent because he was so good. I thought he cozied up a little bit to Rupert and the others to get what he wanted. But then he screwed them. So I'm sort of like, okay. Yeah, we kissed up to them and then he screwed them. Oh my God, have you read the recent one?
Yeah.
Literally, he's like, Trump is like, 2 feet away from, the insane asylum, essentially.
His most recent book, I think, is all about powerful people who are depraved in various ways.
Yeah, I think he called him depraved, a monster. It was like, wow. I think it was one of the tougher books. And really, very clearly, proximity was good for him, even though, he could have done a very different kiss-ass book. He didn't.
Yeah.
So I like that about him. And one of the things, my favorite thing was years ago, and you can find this on the internet. If you can believe this, he and I went on Charlie Rose, that guy. Anyway, and I was wearing a jacket with padded shoulders and a feathered haircut. This was 1996.
I was about to ask.
It didn't really work well. I look at it and I'm like, oh God, the hair. But he and I went, and I said, I read a book about AOL. We were the first books about the internet. We were the very first people. And he said the internet was a Ponzi scheme. He had his narrative, right? Ponzi scheme, it's gonna fall apart, it's a fad, CB radio, the whole thing. And I was like, no, it's gonna decimate every industry. It's gonna be enormous. This is gonna be the richest people on earth. And you could go back and look at it because we argue about it. I, of course, was right. Much to my chagrin, and he was wrong, but it was a great debate. I like that. I like a smart person like you. He's very smart.
Okay, so that's the love half of love hate. Let's tempt fate here. What do you hate about Michael Wolf or his work? You can get out of his by his work.
Besides, he's written like several articles insulting me copiously, which is fine because then he's friendly. So I'm a big girl. I can take it. He thought she was unsuccessful at entrepreneurship. I'm like, hello. who's still around, sir? You know what I mean? But it's fine. I'm a big, I don't care. I think we get into beefs all the time. Like, we were just on Twitter Spaces. And he's like, do we hate each other now? And I go, I think we don't anymore. And he goes, what did we fight about? I'm like, I don't know. I think it was about Rupert Murdoch, because I think Rupert Murdoch is Satan on earth. And he was a little too close to him in a way that I thought was creepy. And so we argued about Rupert Murdoch, I think. You know, I worked for Rupert Murdoch, left, which was a really interesting experience. Largely because he's Uncle Satan, which is what I call him. Anyway, I'm doing a Succession podcast. I'm helping the creators of Succession. You're not supposed to say it's Rupert Murdoch. It kind of is, right? It is. Like, I'm just a consumer of it. It's Rupert Murdoch. And so I've seen the new season. It's really good. I'm not going to tell you anything. It's good because I'm helping them do their podcast. But I think it was over Murdoch. We were beefing. We always beef.
Yeah.
And then we, you know, and it's real mean because we're both real good at Twitter. So we're like. And then he literally was like, what did you fight about? I was like,
Clash of the Titans.
I had no idea.
Let me read a line from Michael Wolff's Wikipedia page. Quote, Wolff is known for his pugnacious personality and has reportedly been ejected from numerous New York City restaurants.
Yeah.
Does that track what you know?
Yeah, he shook me an asshole. Yeah, he struck him.
But yeah, so like what was the most intense?
By the way,
like,
he's calmed down a lot. Like me, he's had new children at an advanced age. So I'm like a straight white man, essentially. But kids, we're like, let's get the kids together. You're such a cliche.
So so you mentioned earlier, he's written some pretty critical things about you from when you and Walt Mossberg sold Rico to Fox several years ago. Did being covered by him whenever he would write about you, did that affect your view of him of other writing, or did you? Because
No.
it was kind of like,
No, you can't deny when someone's a good writer. You just you're an idiot. You know what I mean? Like, you can't deny things. Like, why would I? Like, some of the other day, I tweeted something about Trump, and they're like, we just have to ignore him. Like, that's a typical thing on the left. But I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? He's running the Republican Party. Can't ignore him. That's like crazy. Like, you know, we will him away. I mean, you might want to, but it's not. You have to discuss him. It gives him more oxygen. I'm like, he's got plenty of fucking oxygen. Like, it's not because I'm tweeting about him. The man has followers. Even it was interesting. I did a Cory Bush interview who I thought was terrific recently, and she said, "I can't believe I'm complimenting Donald Trump, but he's a table flipper, even if he flips untruthfully and with hate and malevolence. People like a table flipper. So think about if you give me table flippers for truth, like with truth." I thought that was a pretty smart analysis. By heart.
It's like
they couldn't be more opposite. It's like,
yeah, it's the old saying, the lie gets halfway around the world before the truth has its pants on.
Right.
You know, so you have to be much more aggressive.
you have to acknowledge one of the things that I remember being in Washington when Trump was running at the beginning, and all the Washington reporters were laughing. You know, oh, he's such a silly candidate. And I said, I think he can win. What are you talking about? And he was like, they're like, what are you talking about? I said, have any of you watched The Apprentice? I watched every episode. I said, he's very funny. He's very self-deprecating. He's very popular among people. And he's tapping into an anger that exists in the country that is very meaningful. And he's using propaganda. I had studied propaganda at Foreign Service School. That was my area. I was like, he's like doing the propaganda playbook. I was like, you can laugh at him all you want, but that's your attention. And I remember that. He's a circus performer. I'm like, okay, whatever.
That was Michael Wolff, who is on Twitter at Michael Wolff NYC.
Read that book. It's quite good, actually.
The new one?
Yeah, it's really good.
We have time for one more follow tonight, and I want to finish with a fun one. Kara, I asked you for someone who makes you laugh, and you said Samantha Bee, who's the host of Full Frontal on TBS. She's on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Full Frontal Sam B, and B is just the letter B.
Yeah.
So how long have you been following her work since the Daily Show?
Since the Daily Show, I thought she pioneered a lot of that stuff. Jordan Klepper does what she did for years and stuff. I love Jordan Klepper, by the way. I think so. His name, Louis. Yeah. Klepper, Jordan Klepper.
I think I just interviewed her on stage in New York.
Mhm.
That's the first time she went out in public since the pandemic. She sort of was like, ooh, it was fun. We did it at Little Island, an outdoor space in New York. Go see it if you're in New York. It's like the High Line. It's the same. Barry Dillon did it. It's wonderful. It's a beautiful space on the Hudson. And she is just as funny as ever. I don't think she's gotten her due,
Right.
all these others. Like, I don't begrudge, Jimmy.
Which Jimmy? You gotta be specific. There's too many Jimmys.
There used to be heavier one. What's his name?
Oh, Jimmy Kimmel.
Kimmel, right? Yeah. He's very funny. I think Colbert is very funny. I think John Oliver is brilliant. I think Jon Stewart is brilliant. They're not unbrilliant. You know what I mean?
Okay, wait, we have James Corden, Jimmy Kimmel,
James
Jimmy
Corden's
Fallon, John Oliver.
I'm
We
not
have
a
a lot of
huge
Jimmys.
fan of Jimmy Fallon.
Yeah.
But
I remember there was
James
a big-
Corden enough. I like his scene in the cars, whatever.
Yeah.
But she's much more talented, at least 2/3 of them.
Mhm.
And she never got her due. And I think if you go back and look at her stuff on the Daily Show, boy, is it good. And I thought she has the real point of view on TBS. It's not as big, and so it doesn't get as much attention. Some of her stuff is just brilliant, really great. We did an amazing, it's gonna appear in the Sway episode, I think next week. I think we have Beto for Monday. I think it was, there's Sandy after that, I believe. And she's great. Even when I interviewed her for Recode, as you recall, right after she called Ivanka Trump that name,
Mhm.
and which she repeated on stage last week, except she spelled it. And it was very funny. And she doesn't regret it. And so I think she's just taken a lot of risks and probably deserved more attention than she got. And so I think she's very wry and funny. And I just think she makes me, every time I see something, she makes me laugh. And it's again, it makes me think. It's just not. And she also takes her lumps. That Eric Schneiderman thing she did was such a disaster.
What happened there? I don't remember.
She did say, called him a hero, and then it turns out he like strangles people during sex. I don't know. Remember that? He had to leave. It was another New York politician.
New York
sex scandal.
politics.
It's like a list of sex scandals for New York politicians, and you're like, whoa.
I cannot keep them straight.
No.
But no, I mean,
By the way, I was never a homosexual.
Get out. No, to your point earlier, I mean, I remember when Full Frontal was just launching, there was a big magazine spread all about the new late night comedy, and it was all the dudes, no Sam B. And so I think what she did, if I remember correctly, is she photoshopped herself in as a centaur shooting laser beams out of its eyes, something like that, just into this magazine spread.
Yeah, she's very funny in it. I just interviewed Chelsea Handler too, which is code also, and I thought she's sort of taken a very interesting turn in her comedy. It's she started a weed company and a bunch of other things, but
Her and jumping.
her recent show, which she did in New York, was really quite moving. It was about her brother died suddenly. It shifted her family. I thought it was incredibly effective comedy. She's sort of going that Anna Gatsby route, I guess. But she's she always sort of did the shock talk kind of stuff. Her new stuff is really interesting to me.
Mhm.
So I like her.
So back to Sam B,
I don't want to sites, by the way, also.
too many comedians, yeah, too many good ones. We're gonna get a good golden age, yeah. What's the biggest difference between the Sam B who's on Full Frontal, and you've met her many times, and Sam B in real life? Like, what would you say is the biggest difference?
She's very shy, typical. She's very shy. I think she's surprised by attention. She's certainly not an egomaniac, any stretch. She does a lot. She devotes a lot of her time to her family. She's not sort of a rapacious, aggressive person you might expect from someone in that. I would say she has a happy family life, but I think a lot of comedians don't. I think she's lovely. I find her to be lovely. She was very scared during that Ivanka Trump thing because she got attacked rather significant. She had a big bodyguard, etc. Same thing with Kathy Griffin, who I did a great interview with her. That was a fantastic interview. And Kathy's controversial figure. The kind of stuff she endured because of a stupid joke, a tasteless joke was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. Yeah. I like her. She's very funny.
So yeah, you mentioned Wanda Sykes, you mentioned other comedians that you like. what do you think separates Sam B? Like why would you pick her above the others? Like, what do you think is the thing that the most distinguishes her as one of the best comedians working today?
Oh, I like them all. I probably was just thinking of them because I was doing a lot of watching them at the time. But I like a lot of them. I did a really great interview with Sacha Baron Cohen, who I think is brilliant. What an interesting one he has.
Yeah.
I think comics are really leading the way on social commentary and pushing boundaries that need to be pushed. I'm excited to see what Jon Stewart does. I think that's going to be.
Oh yeah, there's a new show coming out. Yeah.
From Apple.
Yeah.
I think it's really it's like streaming's been really fascinating. Sort of raised the especially Netflix has led the way in terms of getting all the others to start to really program in really fascinating ways. So I think comics, what John Oliver manages to do more than I can't watch cable anymore. I can't even stuff I agree with. I'm sort of like, I did an interview with Don Lemon, president about it. I was like, stop crying. It's so ridiculous, performative bullshit. And I would obviously be more politically related with him, but I don't think it does anyone any good to create these sides that are just reductive and twitchy and angry. They're not complex, and people are complex, except for the anti-vaxxers, and they can go.
For the audio listeners, Kara just made a gesture.
Yeah.
Well, that was Samantha B, who's on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Full Frontal Sam B. I'm going to open it up now. I'm going to pull up Twitter and look for some questions from the audience. Bear with me one sec.
What about this audience?
Yeah, this audience.
Okay.
People have been tweeting. Thank you, everyone who's been tweeting questions in. This first person says, Sean X says, I want to be Kara Swisher when I grow up.
You can't. There's only one.
This is a question from Danielle. Question for Kara. What technology or innovation are you most excited about to advance the future of journalism?
Interesting. That's an interesting question, technology. I'm super interested in a lot of these, not Oculus per se, but VR and AR is really interesting. And I wonder what creativity you could bring to bear with reporting from places that immerse people in real, you could report from Somalia or any war zone. If you could immerse people, I have a feel. There's a lot of things. Yeah, I can see all the bad things.
Mm-hmm.
The minute Mark Zuckerberg said metaverse, I'm like, no, not yours.
Run away.
For the people who brought us misinformation, anti-vaxxers on January 6th, no, you may not do the metaverse. Although they're in Washington right now trying to convince people. They're going to be very careful about it this time, which is always like, no. Like, I had a senator call me. It's like they're in here telling us we're going to do it right this time. It's like they're not. They're not.
They're not.
Throw them out of your office. I just think there's a lot of stuff around that AR and VR that's really interesting.
Yeah.
We can tell stories in fresh ways and bring more voices. I'm fascinated by TikTok, even though everyone's all freaked out about
TikTok for journalism.
There's not a lot of news on it. There's some, and it's an interest, just new ways to tell stories.
Yeah.
I'm always interested in, as you know, I ran a website. We were one of the first out. Everyone's like, Substacks, what an innovation. I'm like, we were doing it 20 years ago. I feel like an old person. Like, I did that. I invented that.
Uphill both ways in the snow.
I know. I was on the Conestoga wagon, doing my blog. But it's really interesting. I do like. I like the trend. It's just not fresh and new. But I do think new ways of telling stories and bringing more voices. Just the way Netflix, I think, is done with programming. You're seeing worldwide stuff on that service. Now everyone else is copying it.
Right.
I had someone from Warner who's on HBO Max. He's like, Kara, we're a global company. I'm like, you're so not. But good luck.
Next question here from Rhea. Who's Kara's interview white whale? Someone she wants to interview and has never been able to.
Never been able to, or haven't asked. I have asked Dolly Parton 169 times. I want to do an interview with her and Taylor Swift at the same time. So I have sent them links. I have literally begged. Because here's why. Actually, a lot of the internet, you read, I got a listen to the Dolly podcast. I love that.
Great show.
I didn't like it.
You didn't, really?
No, I was like, stop talking about yourself. podcast person. I'd like to just hear from Dolly. But I really think that she gets interviewed in such a way where isn't she the most adorable treasure of the United States? I believe she is that. But there's so much more going on there about business, about entrepreneurship, about pain. And she just is so adorable. You just stick with the adorable because you're like, she's the best. That vaccine song, what a great thing. I'd like to go a little deeper with her. I think there's a lot going on. She was a major entrepreneur when other people weren't. And I'm very much interested in her business mind. Same thing with Taylor Swift. You know, I'm so sick of talking about her boyfriend. She's an entrepreneur. She's done all kinds of things. So talk to her about business. I think I would love to interview them together. Basically, I'd like to go at Trump, but that's kind of. Someone told me you can't interview a malignant narcissist because they're not effective. I certainly would like to. My first question would be about what happened with you and your parents, because clearly something did. I'd like to know.
I'm sure his immediate response, he'd somehow find a way to attack you. Like he'd somehow find a way to spin that in.
I think it might also, I'll tell you was my question. I think you like, what happened? Did you not get hugged enough as a child? What I'd like to understand this relationship, you know, impress him and make him uncomfortable about that. People let him get away with stuff. Someone on my staff was like, let's get the Pope. I don't know if we would do good in the Pope. I guess Putin, but then I'd be dead afterwards. You know what I'd like to interview if you pick him in history? Jesus.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Oh, Jesus. What someone with so much impact. What a very interesting person to understand what he really thought.
Yeah. The historical, the person.
And he comes as a god in the too. I just think he'd be really interesting. Someone was posing to me whether I would interview Adolf Hitler, which was interesting. It's kind of a thing you're supposed to say no, but I'm like, I guess I might be. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I still haven't decided.
Yeah. So related question to maybe slightly less colorful people. Sarah asks, why do you think people like Jason Miller and Jeffrey Katzenberg come on to be grilled on your show?
I don't know. I don't know. Mark Andreessen said it was Stockholm syndrome with him. He doesn't talk to me anymore. He's gone down a highway I don't particularly want to follow. I don't know. I think because I believe smart people like smart questions, or people don't like kiss up interviews, and they don't like snarky interviews. And I don't do that. If you listen to all the Mark Zuckerberg interviews, they are tough. They are not unfair. And I think people like that. I think we did so many with Steve Jobs. I was just thinking of it today. And everyone's like, why did he come back? You're always poking at him. And I was like, he's a smart guy. He likes smart questions. And no one, people lick him up and down all day. And he gets to think, like, right? Nobody likes to be, some people like to be licked up and down all day. And that's sort of nearby here at some of the clubs. But I think smart people, I think Jason Miller probably, because he wanted publicity for his thing.
Right.
Jeff, he wants to explain himself.
Yeah.
It's a little harder with me. I'm like, no. But he did pretty well.
Yeah. And last question from the audience. Since we're in a San Francisco crowd here, Kat asks, ask Kara Swisher what she reads for local San Francisco news. What's the lead paper, or is there none?
It's not true. I think the Chronicle's gotten a lot better. I'll tell you that. Who's the editor? Because I'm reading it a lot lately. I think you're doing a pretty good job. A much better job. I thought it's been so bad for so long. But I think the Chronicle's actually pretty good. I think a lot of those little local blogs I read for neighborhoods. It sounds stupid, but I read Next Door. It's a riveting revelation of humanity.
Gigantic quotation marks around it.
Yeah, you're like, if you go on any listserv of any neighborhood, it is like crazy. And you start to get like, there's racism, there's this, there's that. It's fascinating. It's a fascinating look at humanity. People arguing over a trash can, which is always interesting. So I think like those things. I like HTV. lots of things. Twitter, there's Carl the Fog, obviously.
I think I'll stop posting. I think there's now a new, this Carla the Fog has come in to fill the vacuum.
I just did a really interesting, it's not San Francisco, interview with Nathan Allenbach, who does the Steakums. And I'm a pivot.
Oh, like the social media for Steakums?
He does a whole conspiracy theory blog that's fascinating. He's not a conspiracy theory, he like debunks it. But I thought that was fascinating. Just use social media. So much information. I tried using this, a fried steak plank brand. It was a really interesting way to communicate.
And uses it to spread like political messages, right? Uses it to spread like serious stuff. Yeah.
It's great.
It's so weird, but so great.
I find those fascinating.
Yeah.
Patagonia does pretty well. So
Patagonia makes more sense because like how we treat the outdoors, it's a very political issue. Steakums is just like, sure, why not? It's a free country.
I do follow people I think are idiots too. Like a lot of these VCs that are blogging about. Look, we all know San Francisco is one of those problems. We all know there are school issues. I don't agree with some school board stuff or Chelsea food. I get it. But these people hate to be inconvenienced. That's what it is. They don't want to be inconvenienced in some way and have to show any kind of humanity. And so we all have to suffer and also deal with it and everything else. But it's really fascinating. Their incredible selfishness is fascinating to me. It's really interesting. I was meeting with one the other day who I like better than most. It's a very small list. And he was complaining about, I thought San Francisco looks great, by the way. I haven't been back in 2 years. I walked the whole city. It looks, there's problems, no question. It looks better than when I left. Oh, it just does. It just does. For someone who hasn't been here, and I get it. It's so beautiful. There's so many interesting people. Trust me, there's not that kind of people in Washington, D.C. where I live. I like Washington, it's very nice, but this VC was going on to me about, a homeless person yelled at me. I'm like, really? There were 2 shootings near my child's playground in a pretty nice section. And a car windows. I was like, there were 14 on my street in Shaw. Like, fucking kidding me. You live in a city in the middle of a pandemic where people are suffering. Suck it up, Sally, or move to Miami. Go ahead.
I think they all came back. I think
What they do is they move to Miami and they can't stop talking about San Francisco, right? And like, move the fuck on. Your girlfriend doesn't like you anymore.
No. See, I left her.
I left her.
Yeah.
How good Miami is. I'm like, Miami is also good, I guess. She's not so good in bed, Miami. It's fascinating. I'm like, move along, rich people. Like, stop it.
I think it's a good place to wind things down. Move along, rich people. Good message. Universal message.
Yeah.
Okay, before we wrap up tonight, everyone take a look at the screen. You can scan the QR code there, or you can go to followfriday.net/Swisher survey. This is a 2-minute survey about the event. Would love to have your feedback. I will put the QR code back up later, so you have to get it right now.
5-star.
5-star.
I have a friend who's a porn star who calls herself a 5-star because she always wants to get 5-star. She's not a porn star. She makes porn, very nice porn, but she always her name is 5-star. She's great.
Well, 5-star review for this. And if you do fill out the survey, I will send you a free set of these Follow Friday stickers while supplies last, just like the ones that I have on my water bottle here. These ducks are the mascot for the show. Stickers are not for sale anywhere, or only way to get them is go to followfriday.net/Swisher survey. I'll put that up again at the end. But first, Kara, let's make sure people know how to find you online. Where do you want them to follow you?
I'm so ubiquitous, it's kind of depressing. My wife is like, you make too much content, I'm not gonna listen to any of it. And do you listen to any of it, Louis? No, I don't. He does, secretly, my mom does. One time my mom told me about an interview I did, she's sitting right here. I did an interview with Hillary Clinton, and she called me, she goes, I can't believe what Hillary just said. She had watched Fox News, and she said she's being embarrassed right now, but I'm gonna do it. She says, Hillary said this, this, and this, and I was like, no, she didn't. She said it to me, she didn't say that. She goes, oh, that's your opinion. I was like, that was my interview. She didn't say that. So she's here. She listens to all my stuff, actually. I'm just teasing her.
So Kara Swisher on Twitter.
Kara Swisher. You can sway, you can find.
Right, and pivot.
Pivot is twice a week. Twice a week, I have a newsletter for the Times, twice a week newsletter. We have code coming, and it's you can do it virtually, but we'll eventually put it all for free. All the interviews, we'll put up clips and everything else.
When's the book coming out?
I'm working on it.
Yeah.
It's a book about my time in Silicon Valley. I'm literally I'm burning it all down.
British people will get over it eventually.
No, they won't. They never will. Never. You're so mean to me. Can I just finish? Literally, I have people that richest people in the world, powerful people in the world. You're so mean to me. I'm like, are you 12?
They always needed another hug when they were little. Yeah.
Everybody does.
Well, if you all like tonight's show, then please follow or subscribe to Follow Friday in your podcast app. It's free. I do interviews like this every week with creative people, comedians, podcasters, writers, filmmakers, all sorts. So search for Follow Friday or go to followfridaypodcast.com. And you can follow me.
Wait, Eric's a wonderful guy. He worked for me. Did you start as an intern?
Yeah, started as an intern, All Things
He
Deep.
started as, we got so many amazing alumni from Recode and All Things Deep. Eric started as an intern, amazing, amazing guy, and just entrepreneurial, creative, etc. It's one of the delights of creating things is being able to help people's careers like yours, and you're just astonishing.
I'm just checking to make sure I got that. Follow me on Twitter at KKESJ. You can follow the show on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Follow Friday Pod. Our theme music was written by me and performed by Yona Marie. I'm sorry you couldn't all hear it as a technical issue, but listen to the podcast, it's great. Our show art was illustrated by Jody Perma1, and there are some other folks we absolutely have to thank. Can we get a round of applause for the staff at Manny's, please?
By the way, Manny, what a tough year. You're a fantastic guy.
Tonight, thank you for being vaccinated. Thank you to Manny's for having us back. This is Eric Johnson reminding you to talk about people behind their backs. And when you do, say something nice. See you next Friday.
While you're here, I want to do one more round of applause for Eric Johnson and Kara Swisher. I want to say Shabbat Shalom to everyone that's over Shabbat. Some of you are looking at me like I'm crazy, but Shabbat Shalom to the Jews and those who love them. And then 4 event plugs. On Tuesday, we have the director of the Department of Public Health in San Francisco, Brad Colfax, who ran the Department of Public Health during the last 18 months. It was also in San Francisco in public health during the AIDS epidemic. So it's super interesting. On October 12th, we have the authors of the new book, An Ugly Truth, Shira Frankel and Cecilia Chang. It's about Facebook's quest for global domination. You should come for that. Also, New York Times reporters. It'll be an amazing interview. Come for that. Later that week, 2 days later, this is what Manny's is all about. I'll be interviewing the most famous drag queen in San Francisco, Juanita Moore. She never does interviews, and the title of the conversation will be, Who is Juanita Moore? So I hope you can come to that. And then to this audience who might be interested, October 28th, I'll be interviewing the CEO of Eventbrite, Julia Hartz, on what it was like running the largest events and ticketing company other than Ticketmaster over the last 18 months and all the things the company's gone through and her thoughts on the future of events and gatherings. So come to that. Thank you all very much and have a good evening. You can exit through the right-hand side where Precious is and have a good evening. Thanks so much.